Welcome to Root Cause of Happiness. Today, we're diving into Nervous System 101, starting at the very beginning to understand the physiology of our nervous system stress response and why everybody just kind of freaks out once in a while. Looking forward to you joining me here as we start from the very first root of happiness. Welcome to Root Cause of Happiness. I'm Dr. Sarah Bryn Morrow, licensed psychologist, therapeutic yoga teacher, and optimal wellness educator. I teach the physiology of mental health and the skills to overcome suffering at the root cause. My intention is to empower others to become increasingly resilient by understanding the many pieces of the puzzle to deep healing. Please join me as we explore the root cause of happiness. So you know how every once in a while, every single human being kind of freaks out sometimes? And then later on, the issue passes, little time goes by, and we kind of go, dang, why'd I do that? Kind of overreacted. I was maybe a little bit more worried than was necessary. I probably used harsher language than was really called for. We tend to have a little bit of regret. Well, everybody goes through that experience, and that is because of what we call the nervous system fight or flight stress response. Your brain performs billions of functions in every single moment, but out of all the things that your brain does, it has one primary goal above all else. And your brain's number one priority is to make sure that you survive. Roughly between your ears and the bottom center part of your brain lies what's called your amygdala. You have two of them. It means almond, and they're like two little almond-shaped parts of your brain right in the bottom center of the brain, very near your primary sense organs. So it's a very short pathway for your brain to learn, what am I hearing? What am I seeing? What am I smelling and tasting? Is there any evidence through my senses of potential threat or danger or harm to me? When your brain perceives a signal of possible threat, it sounds an alarm, and this alarm does not feel good. It sends your body into a cascade of physiological reactions to help prepare your body to either fight really strong if you end up having to defend yourself, or flight means run really fast and get away from danger, get away from any possible harm. So for example, if your body is going through the day and you see a car coming towards you quickly, you have a flight reaction to jump out of the way and save yourself. Not a fight reaction. You're not going to gear up with anger and readiness to fight because your brain knows, I can't fight back against that car. Similarly, if you hear a loud sound and you startle, your body pulls back away from that startling noise, making sure that you give yourself distance between wherever that loud sound came from. We also have very subtle senses as far as perceiving people's facial expressions, their tone of voice, their body language. And our brain is very, very hardwired to pick up on the most subtle cues of hostility or anger or readiness for attack from another human being. It is really wonderful and essential that our brain and body are wired in this way. Without the nervous system stress response, we would unknowingly, unintentionally put ourselves in harm's way. We might see a nest on a cliff with a maybe egg for food or a flower we like up there. And we might climb a cliff and not realize that that could be a dangerous choice for us to make. We might see a wild animal and think that they're really amazing and want to interact with, say, a bear. If our brain weren't able to register that animal's large, it has sharp teeth, sharp claws, it could harm me if it wanted to. So our survival wiring is so essential, and it's actually fairly common and shared across human beings. So we tend to have similar stress reactions in the face of a similar threat. So for example, in the face of a wild animal, an angry dog, our brain is pretty quick to make us all feel a bit anxious and get ready to remove ourselves, or feel fear if we really do sense danger. If someone attacks us, calls us mean words, pushes us, we tend to all go into a fight stress reaction, feeling anger, feeling a sense of attack that wires me and primes me to get ready to counterattack. Similarly, with loss, we pretty much all experience sadness and grief. Our stress responses are there for a reason. They have allowed human beings to adapt over time. It has increased our chances of survival to be able to have these very quick stress reactions, but they also are unpleasant. And while we need a stress reaction when there really is evidence of possible threat in front of us, what we don't need, and what pretty much everybody has some form or another, are false alarm stress responses. So in a real alarm, there's real evidence of potential danger. It makes sense that we go into a quick physical reaction to protect ourselves. But what about when you're technically safe and sound, perhaps even lying in your cozy bed at home, and your mind starts to worry, and scary images or catastrophic thoughts arise, and your nervous system gets tricked? And just from the thoughts and images and ideas, or the slight possibility that that threat could occur in the future, possibly, maybe, your nervous system will err on the side of safety and trigger your fight-flight stress response just in case. Just in case you need to stay safe right now, your nervous system is going to prepare you. So my whole job as a psychologist is really about helping people recognize and understand where they're having false alarm stress responses. And from that self-awareness, see their pattern, to get to know the physiology of how their body reacts to that stressor. And from understanding their body, build all the tools that we can possibly come up with to allow that person to give their brain feedback that communicates sense of safety. So if we can make the brain feel safe, our brain wants to turn off an unnecessary stress response. The stress response takes a lot of energy. It doesn't feel good. It derails our other biological functions. And so your brain would much rather know that you're safe and allow your body to come back into balance, where the sympathetic nervous system calms down, the parasympathetic relaxation response kicks in, the emotion balances out, and we then move back into growth and self-healing and away from survival mode, in which we tend to deplete ourselves and waste energy. Okay, what happens in this stress response? Let's break it down step by step. So in order to become empowered to navigate the nervous system stress response, we have to become experts at knowing the sensations that we personally are aware of when we have been triggered and our nervous system is out of balance and we're moving into that orange zone or maybe into the red zone of fight-flight stress reaction. One of the very first physical sensations that occurs in the body that most people might notice, but not everybody does, is that your heart rate speeds up. So as soon as I sense potential threat and I startle, my heart starts to beat very fast and very heavy. It's a heavy pounding heart rate. And what we might sense is that there's pressure in the chest, or it's hard to catch our breath, or we can't slow the heart rate down. What's happening is that your brain sounded that alarm. It informed the body to kind of bring all hands on deck, including your endocrine system, your hormones. And the brain is commanding the body to release cortisol and adrenaline. And the heart's job is to distribute those stress hormones all the way through the body, out to the large muscles in our extremities, gearing us up to have extra strength to fight or run. From that heart speeding up, our breath changes. Very quickly, if we are startled, we might breathe in this way. Mouth to chest, up and down, and possibly very fast and shallow, as in hyperventilating. This way of breathing changes our biochemistry as well. And it's also a two-way street between the brain sensing danger and the breath changing. And also when we breathe in this way into the upper lungs, fast and shallow, the brain does feel recognition that there is a problem. The nerve endings at the top of your lungs directly link to your sympathetic nervous system. As we feel sense of danger, we start to breathe into upper lungs. If we choose to breathe into upper lungs, our brain starts to sense danger and trigger the stress response. It's always two-way communication between the brain and body, which is really just one interconnected mega system. From our breathing changes, we might feel bad. Those stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, are pumping through the body. They can make us feel hot and sweaty, cold and shaky, maybe queasy, maybe a terrible sense of dread. It might just feel intolerable, so uncomfortable to have those stress hormones happening throughout the body. Also, the muscles tense up. So if I sense danger, I don't instinctively grab to protect my lower leg. What I do is bring my arms in front of me. Shoulders come high toward the ears. Arms will come in front, maybe hands in fists or hands by my face. I might get very fidgety and restless where I just can't sit still and relax my physical body. My posture tends to become collapsed forward. Why? Well, this is what's called the vital region. If my brain senses there could be danger, number one goal is survive, which means don't get injured here. If my foot or leg were to get injured, I can heal from that. We can survive even without a limb, but this is my vital region in which my life is more at risk should I suffer injury to this part of my body. My airway and blood flow to the brain, my heart and lungs and organs. And so typically in anger or fear or anxiety, we tend to have this forward curved posture. We tend to have our hands very tense, if not in downright fists. We tend to be protecting the neck region and the vital organ region. So there's tension in the muscles of the body. Additionally, I mentioned feeling queasy, and we've all heard the saying, I'm so nervous I have butterflies in my tummy. Well, what's going on is that your body has only so much energy in any one given moment. The body really is kind of a bioelectrical battery. And what happens is that if we sense danger, we have to shift our internal resources, the actual energy of the body, into that survival mode, which means something has to give. And your digestive system takes a lot of energy to function throughout each day. You may not realize this, but you are actually rather shaped like a strange shaped donut. So there is a central tunnel that runs the length of your body, in which all of our food and beverages pass through. And that tunnel is your first line of defense, drawing in the nutrients your body needs, drawing in water, the immune system ready to attack and get rid of any pathogens or toxins or anything harmful to us, and then the waste being processed out. And it takes a lot of energy for this 25-foot-long tunnel to be operating all throughout every day. And so one of the other physiological changes that will happen if we are pushed into a sympathetic nervous system stress response is digestion shuts down. That tends to feel really bad. You might feel nauseated. If you've ever been at a meal sitting around the table and an argument breaks out, you might find it's very hard to eat. Food doesn't taste good anymore. It's really a struggle to force yourself to continue to eat that food. We also know that chronic stress relates to ulcer risk. We know irritable bowel syndrome is tied to stress and anxiety. Also, we have things called stress diarrhea. Some people actually throw up when they're under a large amount of emotional stress. So the digestive system essentially shuts down to shift energy into our survival mode. That is why our relaxation response is also termed our rest and digest relaxation response. It doesn't make sense to rest or go to sleep until you know you're safe. And it's also not necessary to put energy into digestion unless we also know that in this moment all is well and my body can direct resources again to health maintenance, to absorbing nutrients, to growing, to healing. So there is this cascade of events that happens in the physical body. There are other things that happen. For instance, your vision is typically more peripherally aware, scanning the horizons, looking to make sure all is well. And when we identify possible threat, we tend to narrow into central vision. Some people report in a very significant stress response feeling tunnel vision happen where they can't even see beyond what's right in front of them. Our sense of time can slow or alter. It can be very hard to speak. It can be very also difficult to figure out what to do when we're overwhelmed. There's a reason for that. So just how we might save energy through the digestive system shutting down, the other part of your body that takes a lot of energy every day is your frontal lobe. So this cerebral cortex, this more intelligent part of the human brain, is amazing, and it takes a lot of energy to function. So even though your brain is 2.5, 3 pounds at most, it uses about a quarter or more of your body's energy. So what will happen is that, again, reallocating resources to err on the side of survival, you will lose blood flow and function to the smart part of your brain, and most brain activity is more in the limbic system, where those survival instincts live. This is one reason why everybody freaks out once in a while. You truly have about 80% reduced blood flow to the frontal lobe when you're in a very elevated stress response. That's why sometimes we react impulsively, aggressively, we panic, we have a meltdown, we get so overwhelmed we just can't function at all. That is because of the neurology of the stress response and how your energy resources are redistributed to err on the side of fighting or fleeing, or doing whatever it takes to survive the potential threat. So, self-compassion. That means everybody has these moments of, why did I do that? Feeling some regret, or maybe even embarrassed about how we reacted. Every parent, I believe, has moments where we get pushed to our limit, we're just desperate for our children to comply, and we sometimes react in ways that later we regret and really wish we had found more kindness, more patience in dealing with our children in that moment of struggle. Okay, so now that we've explored this cascade of physical effects when our brain senses danger, or it could be a false alarm coming from thoughts and images in the brain, we can start to understand why in moments of emotional stress it feels so bad, we so desperately want the emotion to go away, we sometimes react in ways we later regret or see differently, and often we just can't think clearly and choose our best response in a moment of emotional stress. It's how we're wired, and our survival instincts and that biology is really wise and very essential for living a full life and making mostly smart, safe decisions as we walk through life. But we often need to figure out for ourselves is, where am I suffering unnecessarily? Emotion is normal, but sometimes the problem is this big, and our stress response, instead of matching that level of an issue, our stress response is way out of proportion. Or, again, in the present moment, all is well, but my mind is dwelling in thoughts or images that are making me feel bad unnecessarily. So resilience comes from starting with self-awareness, having the knowledge to understand how your body works, engaging in this practice of ongoing self-study, exploring your patterns, noticing, oh yes, I do notice my heart rate speeding up, or wow, I do find myself biting my nails, or picking at my skin, or jiggling my foot, or squirming in my chair. I do hear my mind having a pattern of worried thought, or self-criticism, or being at war with reality. So from awareness, we now are empowered to choose a different response. In the next video, that's what we're going to dive into. Once we know about the stress response, well, what do we do about it? And there's two big goals. Number one is learning a whole toolkit of coping responses to help us give feedback to the brain that communicates safety. That will help us self-regulate in that acute moment of difficulty. And instead of being this emotionally upset, we can calm ourselves down several notches, turn back on that frontal lobe, find our voice again to communicate effectively, and choose a response to that situation in which it might be difficult, but we're not suffering, and we might have a stressor to navigate, but we feel confident that we can get through it in a way that isn't harmful to ourselves or others. That's the first goal, self-regulation. But my bigger goal that I want to teach everybody about is how to rewire that nervous system stress response to help you become more resilient, more authentic, more courageous as you navigate your life path and find that your level of emotional distress becomes lower and lower over time, your level of resilience and emotional strength increasing as you walk your life path, growing in wisdom every day, every step. Next video, we're going to dive into our model of effective coping skills. I look forward to seeing you there at Root Cause of Happiness. Thank you for joining me at Root Cause of Happiness. If this information was useful to you, please share it with others seeking knowledge and tools for resilience. It is a meaningful contribution to the world when we become proactive in our healing journeys, by learning and growing, by increasing our awareness, by addressing the root cause of happiness.